Hi, in this tutorial we are going to make a small game using Android Studio and Java. By the end of this tutorial you will be able to do this. So let's get started. If you want to master Android apps and games development, then click subscribe and the bell icon, and let's do this together. Open Android Studio. Click New Project. In the New Project screen, select Empty Activity and click Next. Write the project name and package name. Your package name is usually your website in reverse order .project name. Select the save location. For language I am selecting Java. Leave the minimum SDK as it is. Click Finish. Now wait for Android Studio to build and configure your empty project. Let's check out the graphics and sound effects I will be using in this project. Closely look at the dimensions of each images. Copy these into the drawable folder. Next, let's create a new folder called raw in res and copy the sound effects into that. Next, let's define the layout for main activity. If you are not familiar with layout designing in XML, check out some of the tutorials in this series where I have already explained this in detail. I will put a link in description and in the info card for your reference. Next, go to mainActivity.java. To keep the screen on, just add this line after calling setContentView. Define the startGame method that takes a view parameter. Inside this method, instantiate a GameView object. Pass this for context in the constructor. Next, call setContentView with the GameView object that we just created. We will define the GameView class later. Let's create a class called Velocity to control and access ball velocity. Declare two private integer variables for velocity in x and y directions, respectively. Define the constructor and initialize these classes x and y with values received in the constructor. Define getter and setter methods for x and y. Then define the brick class responsible for managing the bricks. Using this class, we will draw the bricks and manage the visibility of bricks. Declare a boolean variable that stores the visibility state of a brick. Declare few integer variables for brick row, brick column, brick width and brick height. Define the constructor taking 4 parameters: row, column, width and height. In the constructor, set isVisible to true. So by default, every brick is visible till it's being hit by the ball. Initialize these classes row, column, width and height with values received in the constructor. Define a setter method to set isVisible to false. Define a getter method to get the boolean isVisible. Let's create a custom view class by extending view. This class will be responsible for drawing paddle, ball and bricks, handling animation, detecting collision, displaying points and health bar. So this is the most important class in the whole project. So pay attention. In the class scope, we need to declare few variables. Declare a context object reference. Declare two float variables to store the xy coordinates of the ball. Instantiate a velocity object with 25 in x direction and 32 in y direction. Declare a handler object reference. Make sure you import the android.os.handler package. A handler allows you to schedule a runnable to be executed at some point in the future. Define a long variable to store delay in milliseconds. It will be used by the handler object. Since the value will not change, let's make it final. Declare a runnable instance. Runnable is often used to provide the code that should run later. The runnable interface has a method called run that must be defined when we create a runnable instance. Instantiate a paint object to draw the points. Instantiate a paint object to draw the health. Instantiate a paint object to draw the bricks. Define a float called text_size. As the name suggests, this will be used as the text size for displaying points on the screen. Declare two float variables to keep track of paddle position. Declare two float variables for repositioning the paddle during a touch. Declare an integer variable for storing points and initialize it with 0. Define an integer variable for life and initialize by 3. So by default, we want the player to have only 3 lives. Declare two bitmap object references for ball and paddle. Declare two integer variables to store screen width and screen height. Declare two integer variables to store ball width and ball height. Declare media player object references for hit, miss and break sounds. Declare a random object reference. Define an array of brick objects with a maximum capacity of 30. Define an integer variable numBricks representing the number of bricks. Initialize it with 0. Define an integer variable broken bricks representing the number of broken bricks. Initialize it with 0. Finally, define a boolean flag variable representing game over status. Initialize it with false. Next, create the constructor for this class. The constructor is called when an object of a class is created or instantiated. So when we create an object of GameView class in main activity using the new keyword, the constructor for GameView is called. Now let's define this constructor. Save the received context in this class's context. Instantiate the ball and paddle bitmap objects. Instantiate the handler. Create the runnable instance and override the run method. Refresh the view by calling invalidate. This will indirectly call onDraw by Android framework and our view will be redrawn almost immediately. Instantiate the media player objects. Set the color of text paint to red. Set the text size. Set its alignment to left. Set the initial color of health paint to green. Set the color of bricks. Next, we need to calculate the height and width of the screen. For that, we will create a display object. Instantiate a point object. Call getSize on displayObject, pass pointObject as parameter and get the screen size into pointObject. This pointObject size has screen width and screen height in its x and y properties respectively. Initialize dWidth and dHeight with them. Instantiate the random object. Randomly initialize x coordinate of the ball. And y coordinate. Next, position the pedal 4/5 of the way down the screen and in the center horizontally. Let's correct the spelling. Initialize ball width and ball height. Call createBricks method that will create all 24 bricks on the screen. Let's create this method. We assume a brick width is 1/8 of the screen width. And brick height is 1/16 of screen height. Next, using two for loops, build a wall of bricks. we will have 8 columns and 3 rows. That is a total number of 24 bricks. Create new brick objects, pass row, column, brick width and brick height in the constructor. Use these brick objects to initialize the brick array. Increment num bricks by 1. Next, override onDraw method where we will write code related to drawing and animating ball, bricks, paddle, etc. Set the canvas color as black. Get the velocity and add to the ball in x and y directions. These two lines are responsible for ball movement. As long as onDraw method is getting called, the ball x and ball y values are getting changed, causing the ball to move from left to right, right to left, top to bottom. Note that we will be using ball x and ball y to draw the ball bitmap on canvas. Check the left and right wall collision. If the ball touches the left or right wall, reverse its direction. For example, if the x value is plus 10, then you can assume that the ball is going from left to right, since the coordinate of the top left corner is 0, 0. Now when it collides with the right wall, we will reverse x velocity and make it minus 10, which will cause the ball to go from right to left. Check the top wall collision. When the ball collides the upper wall, we will reverse the direction of y. Check when ball misses the pedal. If true, randomly give initial x coordinate of the ball. Set ball y to 1/3 of the screen. Play the miss sound. If both the x value and y value of velocity are same, we will see the ball will be moving in 45-degree angle towards the pedal, and we don't want that. So we want to set velocity's x value to some value in this range, minus 35, minus 30, minus 25, 25, 30 and 35. Let's define x velocity method. In x velocity method, create an integer array to hold the range of values for x velocity. Randomly generate an index. For bound, we passed 6 so that next int can return any integer between 0 and 5. Return the array element with this index. We will use a y value of 32. Since the ball missed the pedal, decrement life by 1. When life becomes 0, we will set game over flag to true and call launch game over method, which will basically create an intent to launch game over activity. We will put the points into the intent in key value pairs by calling putExtra method, start game over activity using that intent, and finish the current activity, main activity. In launch game over method, clear the handler. Create an intent to launch game over activity. Put points into intent as key value pairs by calling putExtra method. Start game over activity using the intent. And finish the current activity, main activity. Now let's implement ball and paddle collision. The ball and paddle collision happens once all 4 conditions are satisfied. Number 1. The ball's right edge overlaps the paddle's left edge. Number 2. The ball's left edge overlaps the paddle's right edge. Number 3. The ball's bottom edge overlaps the paddle's top edge. And number 4. But the ball's bottom edge is not below the paddle's bottom edge. If true, play the hit sound. Increase the x and y velocity by 1 for an increased difficulty. And reverse the direction of y. Draw the ball by calling drawBitmap method on canvas object. The parameters are bitmap, left coordinate, top coordinate and paint. Draw the pedal. Draw the visible bricks using a for loop. Check if the brick is visible. If true, draw the brick on canvas. We added and subtracted 1 pixel to left top and right bottom respectively to show brick borders. Draw the points. Check the life. By default, the health bar is shown in green. If life becomes 2, then we will change it to yellow. When it is 1, we will change it to red. Draw health bar using the drawRect method. The prototype is void drawRect within parentheses float left, float top, float right, float bottom, paint. I want to keep a right margin of 200 units to the rectangle. And I have set the maximum length of our rectangle to be 180 units. So I have subtracted 200 units from d width, which becomes the left value. Also, I want to give a top margin of 30 units. so the top value is 30. The right value dynamically changes with life. It's dWidth minus 200 plus 60 times life. When life is 3, the width of the rectangle is maximum or 180 units, and when the life is 1, the width of the rectangle is minimum or 60 units. For bottom value, I have given 80. So 80 becomes the height of the health bar. Hope things are clear to you. Next, check for ball collision with a brick using a for loop and iterating through the number of visible bricks. If true, meaning when ball hits a brick, play sound effect for brick breaking. The ball was moving up, so it collided with the brick, and we need to reverse y velocity. Set the visibility of this brick to invisible by calling setInvisible on this brick object. Let's increment points by 10, but you can increment with any value you want. Increment broken bricks by 1. Call launch game over when all 24 bricks are broken. Check if the value of broken bricks is equal to the value of num bricks. If true, meaning when the player successfully broke all the bricks, change game over flag to true. Finally, from onDraw, we will call the postDelete method on handler object if game over flag is false. This will wait for 30 milliseconds and then call invalidate in run method of the runnable. Invalidate method will call onDraw again, and this way we have created an infinite game loop. Once the game over flag is true, control does not enter the if block and the postDelete method is not called. Clear? Finally, let's override onTouchEvent method. Get the touchX and touchY from motionEvent object. We will consider only when touch is on or below the pedal. Determine what kind of action is being performed by calling getAction method on motionEvent object and stored in an integer variable. When you touch the screen, the action underscore down event fires up. In this case, store x coordinate of touch in old x and store paddle x in old paddle x. Check if the event is action underscore move. Now this event would be rapidly fired as long as the player is moving his or her finger on the screen. Here we move the pedal as the same amount as the difference between the old touch and the new touch, but we won't let the pedal go off the screen. Returning true in an on-touch tells Android system that you already handled the touch event and no further handling is required. Open themes.xml in res values and add this style tag to make your app full screen. Go to gameview.java, comment out these lines and run the app. As you can see, the game has launched, but we can still see the action bar at the top of the screen. It's because we forgot to include this theme in Android manifest. So let's quickly do that. Run the app again. On clicking the play button, we get this black screen. So let's check out the error in Logcat. You can clear the Logcat messages and run the app again to see your error message in Logcat. We can't see any error message in Logcat after clicking the play button. So this is probably a logical error in our code. Let's check out the code. Open gameview.java. Yes, right after the closing curly brace of this if block, we missed a closing curly brace. Let's write a closing curly brace. Delete this curly brace. Format the code by pressing Ctrl Alt Enter. Run the code to check the output. As you can see, once we click the play button, the game starts. Ball is moving as we expected, colliding with the walls and with the pedal. Score is displayed on top left corner and health bar is displayed on top right corner. Once we break all the bricks, the screen freezes, since the boolean variable game over becomes true, and so the post delete method is not further called. Next, let's create the layout file for game over activity. Again, if you are not familiar with layout designing with XML, go check some of the tutorials in this playlist for a detailed understanding. Check out the design. Alright. Next, right-click on package and create a new Java class called GameOver by extending app_compat_activity. Override onCreate method. Declare TextViewObjectReference for showing points. Declare ImageViewObjectReference for showing a cup image once the player successfully breaks all the bricks. Call setContentView and pass the layout resource ID for game_over.xml. Get the handles for text view and image view. Get the points from intent and store in an integer variable. Check if the value of points is equal to 240. If true, meaning the player broke all the bricks, so show the image of a cup. Set the text view for points with the value of points. If you get any red squiggly lines in your code, just clean your project from build. Define the restart method. Create an intent object. Launch main activity with this intent. Finish current activity. Game over. Define the exit method. Just call finish method, which will basically close the app. Finally, we need to add an activity tag in Android manifest. So just copy this activity tag and paste below. Change the name to game over. Remove the intent filter tag since we don't need it for game over. Fix the screen orientation to portrait. Copy this line for game over activity. Uncomment these lines and run the app once again. Perfect. Let me give you some ideas on how to develop this game further. You can implement different levels with increased difficulty. You can change the background with each level. You can also play background music while playing this game. The possibility is infinite. Just use your imagination. If you get stuck, you can always comment on this video. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and learned few new things from it. Thanks for watching and see you in another tutorial. Take care. If you find this tutorial useful, please like and share the video and subscribe to my channel for more tutorials like this.